Hi everyone. I've had a lot of questions about getting MySQL working. So I thought I would take a second and go over using MySQL in a video so that everyone can follow along. I'm going to be doing this on a PC, so I'm sorry to those of you who have Macs, but there are some resources out there and I can see if I can find other ones if those don't work well enough. The best place to start is by going through Appendix D in the text, which has step-by-step instructions for downloading and installing MySQL. So we'll start by doing that. So in Appendix D, an introduction to MySQL, it gives a brief description about what MySQL is. Let me first start by saying I chose MySQL because it's free and available to anyone. It doesn't mean it's the easiest one. Honestly, the easiest one to use would be Microsoft Access. But let me also say to you, the assignments themselves, I don't ask you to turn in the database necessarily, just screenshots of or bits of you writing writing SQL. So you could do that in Access too. If you have the availability to use Microsoft products and want to use Access instead of MySQL, I will allow that because of the way and the nature that the assignments are submitted. However, because MySQL is no cost, I've chosen to use this instead, which does give us this little bit of a challenge. Now, MySQL is a program that organizes data. MySQL Workbench is a program that organizes MySQL. So it's just kind of a way to use MySQL to work with schemas and data. First thing you have to do is download MySQL, and there are several places, but it gives you a link right here that opens up into a Windows installer that shows the availability. And once you get this one and you click on download, it is going to ask you want the developer default, and it's going to walk you through the options to install. And once everything is installed, you'll get a password and you'll start MySQL Workbench. So walk yourself through that. And I think everybody was at least able to get that done. Okay, once you have gotten MySQL Workbench set up, the next step is to create or open a SQL file. I did give you SQL files in the link that you can use under using MySQL. So you can see here's downloadable files. And I've already put in JCC Consulting, so I'm going to put in Pit Fitness instead. So you just download that file, and then it'll be stored in your downloads, and we can use that in order to follow these instructions. So the first step to opening a file, when you open a file, you click on the File menu and click on the Open SQL Script menu option. Then you navigate to open the SQL file. And it's called a script file because you're not actually opening the data, you're opening a series of SQL commands. And those commands are going to create the table. So let's look at those tables. And when it does that, it's going to insert records into each table using the SQL commands. And so the top SQL statements are the one that's going to actually do it. So we have to load this script, then we have to execute it, which is going to create the tables. Okay, once you get in with your local test, you can now insert a file. So you click on File and Open SQL Script, and I'm going to do Pit Fitness. So I open this. Let's talk about this for a second, what this is. This is imported from MS Access. That means that the person who wrote this, they created it in Access and then they dumped the SQL file from it rather than writing it in SQL, which is fine. So all these blue things that start with the hashtag mean, ignore those. All right, now the only thing we need to change is right here, and you see these dots because it says pay attention to this. Create database if not exists. Well, we want our database to have a name, so I'm just going to call this one Pit. And use Pit. That means for the rest of this, everything will go under a database called Pit. You have to give that a unique name. So now we're going to drop table if exists classes. If there's already something out there, it's going to get rid of it. Then it's going to create a table that has an ID, a name, a room, a location, a length of time, max size, type of class, day, time, description, an index, and the primary key. Then it does the insert into function to put each of those values in to create this. Then it creates a table called class instructors and inserts the data. Then it creates a table called customers and then inserts, let me get rid of this guy because he's taking up our space here. It's putting in each of those values, insert into, and each of the tables are being created. Okay, so the next step then, once you've got this SQL script available, is you click on Run. And you can see it's working all down here, doing all that stuff. Now you come up here to Schemas, and you press Refresh. And you'll see I have this new thing that says PIT, which is the name that I gave the database. And under that, we have tables. And there's all those tables that were just created. Like, for example, here's customers and what created it. And if you want to, and here's the foreign keys and the triggers. Here's instructors. If you want to see the data, you click on this little data square and everything's right there. So there's all that data. And up here is a query. So select everything from pit.instructors. And that just means that you're going to select everything from the table instructors in the database pit. All right. So I think that gets you into SQL Workbench. The rest is writing some silly queries. And as you want to create new queries, you just go up and you can say query. You can create a new SQL query by clicking the SQL button. And on here, where you get to the query, you can type in the code. I'll do that on the next video. But I hope this has been helpful. And let me know if you have any trouble. Thanks. And give me some feedback. Was this helpful? Love to hear from you guys. I will post this right now.